What's going on, family? How y'all doing? Listen, I wanted to give y'all a teaching on the spirit of shame on today because shame has been something that we've seen that has affected man's identity since the beginning of time when we read in Genesis chapter 3 with Adam and Eve. All right. And shame has been passed down from generation to generation. And shame is usually the very thing that people build their identity off of. And it actually strips them of who they are in God. It strips them from being vulnerable, from being comfortable being themselves. And if you don't feel comfortable being yourself, not only are you going to mold yourself into who the world or who your pain wants you to be, not only are you going to internalize the pain of your mistakes, and that's going to end up becoming who you are and how you interact with the world, but it strips you of being able to express heaven's blueprint through your life and through your situation. It robs you of your heavenly assignment. So the first thing we see shame do is it disconnected Adam and Eve from their dominion. It caused them to forfeit dominion, forfeit their identity, and it pushed them into hiding. We see as soon as Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, Adam tried to hide from God, and God was like, Adam, where are you? We saw them sew fig leaves together and to wear them as clothes. And this is in representation of covering themselves because they were ashamed of their mistakes. They were ashamed of their vulnerability. But in real life, you know, we look at this like creating alternate identities, right? We end up editing and trying to fix ourselves to be the person who we think other people want us to be. We end up fixing ourselves to be the person we think other people will approve of. And we end up actually forgetting who we are because we're not comfortable with being fully who we are because we believe if I am who I am, right? If I let the real me come out or if people know who I truly am, they'll leave me. That's the voice of shame in your life. So shame disconnects you from yourself and it disconnects you from the love of God. Shame doesn't just say I did something wrong, but the voice of shame will speak to you and say, I am something wrong. So you begin to think that you are a problem. You begin to think that you are a burden. And a lot of times, when this drives you into things like narcissistic or abusive relationships, you'll end up having people who not only abuse you, but they'll start to say things like, you can go be somebody else's problem. And when you begin to internalize that and you take on that label as who you are, mm, you'll settle for less. You'll tolerate the abuse. You'll try to go above and beyond for a person who already treats you like this, thinking that if you shape yourself to be who they want, or if you succumb to their needs or their wants over your own, that this person will stop abusing you. But it never actually works out that way. So it attacks identity, not just behavior. So when this happens, a person is going to start to hide parts of themselves that got punished for being vulnerable. Shame makes you feel embarrassed to just fully be yourself. It silences your needs. You end up putting other people's needs over your own. You end up shrinking down your personality. So what it does is it strips you of your light. It disconnects you from your own desires, your own values, and it disconnects you from God's heavenly blueprint. So shame makes you feel like your existence is the problem. It makes you feel embarrassed. It makes you feel humiliated. So, what the spirit of shame is going to do is it's going to create an internal split of oneself. This is where soul fragmentation, all the, trauma-induced personalities, the mode switching that I talk about comes in. Because behind closed doors, you'll be one way, but in front of other people, you'll switch, which is where the mode switching comes in. And you end up switching into another personality to fit the environment that you're in. So a person ends up developing two different selves: the performing self, the version that tries to be acceptable, the version that people pleases, and then you have the hidden self or your true self, which is the version that carries the wound and is usually tormented by the emotional pain. It's tormented by the rejection and the abandonment. And deep down, you're not being yourself. Deep down, you tolerate too much. Deep down, you want to be more, but you're scared to be. And so you shrink. And in these situations, you have to identify the root cause, right? Because you probably still haven't let go of the failures, the mistakes, the embarrassments of the past, all of the humiliations of the past that have caused you to kind of wear that mask. So you end up really stiff in your person, meaning when you go places, you're afraid to fully express and just be you. So you're stiff, right? You're constantly editing. You're trying to fix yourself based off of who's in the room or where you're about to go. This internal fragmenting or trauma splitting, it drains your energy because you're constantly managing how you appear instead of living from who you are and being secure in that, regardless of people's reactions. It's stressful. It ends up stealing your peace. It creates this sense of inner torment, and it stops the blessings and the opportunities that come from the authenticity of just being you, right? So it can be tiring because when you're living off being performance-based, living to people please, all of these things, they drain your energy and they create more trauma. They create more emotional distress because you end up trying your whole life to live up to the standard of people who don't truly appreciate you. So you leave feeling devalued. You leave feeling unworthy every single time. And this now empowers the shame cycle to become stronger every time this happens. Understand that shame is not just emotional, it's not just psychological, but it's also physiological. All of these things begin to trigger things in your body like collapse when you feel unsafe or you walk into new situations, new opportunities, new relationships. When you get a negative reaction from somebody for just being you, it causes you to freeze, it causes you to withdraw. You have what's called self-protective shutdown, where people sometimes feel triggered and they go into isolation for months at a time and they don't want to open up to nobody. And the problem with this is that even though you isolate from people, deep down inside, you still desire connection. You still desire to want to open up and become vulnerable with the person. But because you're too afraid to deal with that, it stimulates those desires for you to go back into whatever you used to cope, whether it's drinking, smoking, porn, fornication, whether it's indulging in all of this destructive behavior. A lot of times people like this, when they feel alone and tormented, they end up creating chaos. They want to go into situations that cause drama because anything to feed that pain and make you feel like you're alive. All right. Isolation when you're lonely, especially is especially not a good thing. But at the same time, you don't want that loneliness and that rejection, right? And that shame that you feel to drive you into anything that you know is going to be toxic for your life. So in these situations too, a lot of times your body literally tries to make you smaller so that you won't be seen, because you know that if you're seen, people could judge me for it. If I let this part of me out, people are going to say something. They're going to critique me. So the spirit of shame is the biggest thing that robs people of who they are because it makes you shrink down for other people. It makes you dim down your light. When the Bible literally says that you are the light of this world, let your light shine before men. Come on here, somebody. So shame is going to distort your interpretation also of other people, because when shame is active, you read even neutral situations as threats. So even in situations where people are not picking with you, they're not even worried about you, you start thinking they don't like me. Maybe I'm bothering them. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm not enough. They're judging me. They're thinking this. They're thinking that about me. So shame becomes the lens you see the entire world through. So even when it comes to building healthy relationships, you can't. You end up tormented even in that space, and you end up sabotaging. Shame makes you either over-attached or under-attached. What do I mean by this? So depending on your history, right? Shame either pushes you into one of two different extremes. Either over-attachment, which is chasing love, over-giving, over-explaining, people-pleasing, tolerating disrespect, staying in unhealthy relationships because you feel like you won't be loved elsewhere. Or it creates under-attachment, which is isolation. You avoid relationships and you avoid intimacy. You emotionally shut down. You push people away. You're not emotionally available. Both of these things are survival strategies, and sometimes people can also deal with both of these. So if you feel like you see yourself in any of these situations, I want you to begin to identify where it comes from, write it down, and define it so that you can start to feel safe opening up and fully being yourself and engaging in new relationships. Come on here. Another thing that shame does is it kills your self-trust. It makes you doubt your discernment. It makes you doubt your self-worth. It makes you doubt your confidence. It makes you doubt what you're capable of. And so now if you doubt what you're capable of, we were talking about, a few weeks ago, overcoming failure, defeat, overcoming the spirit of doubt. Because if you doubt yourself and what you're capable of, you end up thinking, oh, people are not going to support me, or they're gonna persecute, they're gonna clown on me for what I'm doing, this and that. And then you end up shrinking back even from destiny and the things that God is telling you to build. You end up rejecting your own blessings. You end up doubting your decision making. You doubt your boundaries. You doubt your own voice, and you start to listen to other voices. You start outsourcing your identity to other people's reactions. Can I speak to somebody on today? So every reaction, every negative reaction, everything that somebody does or doesn't do, this is what controls how you feel about yourself. This is what writes the internal narrative, in which is what controls your everyday life and how you interact. It's not a good thing. So if you see these things, you have to begin to identify, renounce, and denounce and rewrite your internal story based off of how God sees you and who you are called to be here in this earth. Shame also creates a hunger for external validation, which is never a good thing. It says you're not enough. So you start looking for someone to approve you. You start looking for someone to choose you. You start looking for someone to affirm you, to rescue you, to make you feel loved, to make you feel like you're worthy. And as long as you do that, you are always going to end up in situations that devalue you. It's never going to end up good, because when you are operating from this lens, or you are operating from this spirit, it always causes you to draw people that will take advantage of those wounds. That's how shame drives people into the wrong relationships, right? Shame keeps you loyal to environments that continue to abuse you. So that voice of shame, that spirit, is going to whisper to you in your ear and feel like you're not going to find better without this person. All right? It's going to speak to you and make you feel like, well, because of your mistakes and because you're this, and that, this is all you deserve and this is all you'll ever become in life. And you start to actually accept that narrative, which is dangerous because it keeps you in bondage and it keeps you always limited. And you don't realize, like, hey, God has a plethora of different opportunities. You have so much potential and so many possibilities that you never tap into because you become bound. You become a slave to this narrative. You start thinking, I'm the problem. So you stay where you're not valued because shame convinces you that you'll never deserve more. Another thing that the spirit of shame does is it makes you punish yourself for other people's behaviors or reactions. You internalize every time somebody rejects you, every time they abandon you, every time they're inconsistent, every time they're cruel, every time they talk crazy to you, they disrespect you. You begin to internalize that, and that, again, it rewrites the storyline within your soul. Shame turns their actions into your identity. Another thing that the voice of shame is going to speak to you, it's going to say, if they knew the real you, they'd leave. So it makes you block love even when it's offered to you. It says things like, don't get too close. You're going to mess this up. So you sabotage connection to avoid the pain of being seen. And the truth is, shame doesn't just hurt you. It's not just a wound, but it ends up shaping everything about you, and it shapes how you interact with the world around you. It shapes how you love, right? It shapes how you attach to people. It shapes how you see yourself. It shapes how you choose your partners. It shapes what you attract. It shapes how you show up in relationships, how you interpret a rejection, how you interpret or handle conflict, right? It interprets what you pursue in life. It interprets how you limit yourself. It interprets how far you're willing to go in life. It interprets what you tolerate. All of these different things you have to, the reason I give you all of these is because I want you to start to see how this affects all of these different things in your life so that you can begin to deal with it, heal from it, and change. So healing from the spirit of shame, it means that you finally let go of the identity that you've created. You finally take off the mask that you've used to be worthy or to earn love or to protect. Identify the areas that you protect. Identify the areas even where you're prideful and egotistical. Let it go and identify what's underneath. What is the fear? What is the shame? What are you afraid of is going to happen? What are you afraid of people to see? Which is, I'm going to get into a video after this talking about the spirit of Leviathan, and we're going to get into pride and ego and how it's an overcompensating demon for shame. We're going to get into that later because that's very important. So healing from shame means you no longer internalize other people's reactions to who you are and how you live. All right. You no longer manage your tone, your identity, or edit yourself based on who's in the room, and that anxiety or the fear of other people's reactions, it starts to leave you because you care less. And I don't mean careless as in you start to turn into a cold person, but you're not controlled by external validation. Right? You're secure in yourself, whether people approve you or don't approve you. You stop trying to force relationships. You accept it and you don't feel rejected when people leave you. You no longer walk on eggshells. You no longer over explain yourself. You walk into a room with confidence and you take authority in rooms without feeling fear or guilt or without having to shrink yourself down. You stop internalizing other people's moods. Come on, somebody. You no longer chase, you attract. You stop trying to earn love and you start receiving love. Your self-talk even becomes kinder because you notice you start to shift from things like, I always mess up to, well, I made a mistake. It's all good. I'm still worthy and I can learn and I can adjust from it. You start learning to say things. That inner voice starts going from I'm stupid to I'm learning. I'm not enough to I'm growing. You'll start to see all of these things shift. And as that internal critic starts to shift into something that becomes a supportive friend to you in your growth, you'll start to see there's going to be more peace. You're going to start to love yourself more. All right. And you're even going to be more open to new relationships and new opportunities. And even if things go wrong in certain situations, the rejection or the embarrassment that you would normally feel is going to start to have a less of an effect on you moving forward. All right, we're gonna get into talking about the spirit of Leviathan, pride, and ego. We're gonna get into a video talking about overcoming failure, defeat, things like doubt, inadequacy, all of these things. Stay tuned. I love y'all. Come on, let's get it.